Today's episode is brought to you by HERdacity. HERdacity is a nonprofit inspiring confidence in women to achieve their professional goals. For resources, networking opportunities, and a strong community of women, visit HERdacity.org to learn more.
Welcome to HERdacious, a podcast for audacious women. Salutations to all. This is HERdacious, and I am Lorelei. I am very glad you joined me today. We're going to be talking about your inner guidance, following your female intuition, and how that can lead to creative ways to generate dollars. And with me today to discuss these very unique tools, we have former teacher and founder of the non-9-to-5, where they help folks out of their 9-to-5 gig and into their non-9-to-5 purpose, Miss Jen Shultz.
Hi, Lorelei. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure, Jen. Super great to have you. Sister, how long have you been an entrepreneur?
I've been an entrepreneur now for over 9 years.
Do you like it?
I love it. I love being self-employed.
Talk to me about how you got into that, because I know that you used to be a teacher. Now you're an entrepreneur, helping people embrace their entrepreneurship and that passion. How did that spark for you?
That's a really great question. I appreciate you asking that. So I was a teacher in a top-performing charter school in New York City. This was circa 2010. And I also found myself at a place in my life where I was ridden with anxiety. I was depressed. I thought something was wrong with me, and I kind of couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. And in retrospect, nothing was wrong with me. It was that working in a classroom was not a fit for me. And the depression and anxiety got so bad that I decided to quit my job. And in December of 2010, I walked in one Monday morning. I gave 2 weeks notice. And 2 weeks later, I had no job, no paycheck, no health benefits. And that catapulted me into the entrepreneurial world.
All right. Tell me a little bit about your journey to create the non-9-to-5.
When I left my job, I found a way to generate income without having a full-time job. Now, at this time, I didn't really know I was meant to be an entrepreneur. But what I did know, just deep down inside in my heart and in my gut, was that I wasn't meant to do work that someone else was telling me how to do it, when to do it, where to do it. So for instance, when I was teaching in the school system, I was told what I could and could not say to parents, how I could and could not teach. And that felt really stifling. And I felt like it lacked autonomy. After I had left my teaching job, I was able to secure work as an independent contractor. And I became a tutor for a private agency. And I started working with one-on-one with students. From there, they gave me 1 student, 2 students, 3 students. That then propelled me into doing this full-time. And then that propelled me into starting my first business, which was called Teacher on the Go. And I did this for several years on my own. And that led me into doing the work I'm doing now. The short end of that story is that I realized that there were other people like me, that there were other women like me who were working jobs that weren't feeling fulfilled, feeling happy, perhaps going through depression and anxiety like myself, but knowing deep down inside that there was something else for them. And so I took it upon myself. I became a certified professional coach, and I started working with clients to teach them exactly what I had done to create my own life, to step into my purpose. That's the opposite of the 9-to-5, the non-9-to-5.
Right. So I feel like you had to kind of blaze your own trail. And part of that entailed trusting yourself. Did you have little voices in your head or in your gut saying, this is going to be okay? This is scary. Don't do that. What are you doing? What are you thinking? We got this.
I heard all of those voices and then some. I heard a voice that was really telling me, you can do this. You can figure this out. You're going the right path. And I had voices telling me, you're a loser, you're 31 years old, you don't know what you're doing, you're a jerk. I mean, some pretty nasty things that, we wouldn't say to our best friends or our loved ones.
Oh, but we say them to ourselves.
We do.
Ugh.
Yeah. And that's that sort of, you can call it your inner critic. I refer to it as your ego mind.
Okay.
And so I've had all those voices. I mean, running the gamut from like, you've got this, you know what you're doing, this is your life's work, this is your purpose, to you're not going to figure this out, people don't like you, you're a loser. Loser has been a theme for me since I was a kid. So it's been something big that I've worked on for years, but loser has always been one that's come up. That's pretty mean, I'd say.
Harsh. We are often our harshest critics. Jeez. But you push past it. You push past the negative self-talk and the ego mind.
Yes.
The ego mind.
Yes.
And you told yourself you weren't a loser and you created a business. You found a creative way to generate money. So I know from my experience with you, and I know that you listeners do not, you have a framework within which this falls under. So do you want to tell us very briefly about this framework so we can hone in on that inner guidance piece?
Yeah. So I teach 6 steps to living the non-9-to-5 way is what I call it. And within these 6 steps, one of them is referred to stand on your own 2 feet. And to stand on your own 2 feet can mean something different from one person to another. For myself, when I created this step and I designed these steps from my own personal experience and from knowing what's really needed to go from the 9-to-5 to the non-9-to-5, standing on your own 2 feet, it really means being able to find creative ways to support yourself. So specifically, generating an income outside of your 9-to-5 job, because for myself, I also had one of those voices saying to me, you're going to fail. You're going to live in a cardboard box. You're never going to feel financially free, etc. So I think it's important for me to share that. And I was sharing earlier about the independent contracting work I did. The way that I found that work was through listening to my own inner guidance, intuition, higher power, whatever you want to call it. And then connecting that to listening to my own inner guidance, higher power, intuition, whatever you want to call it, and having that guide me to finding a way for me to stand on my own 2 feet. So going back to the independent contracting work, I had an evening, I can't clearly remember this because this is 10 years ago, almost 10 years ago, where I went online and I Google searched or I searched something about like teaching jobs on your own or something like that. I came across this tutoring agency and I ended up having an interview with them while I was still teaching at this time back in 2010. And I would have never have thought in a million years that I could actually be a licensed certified teacher and work outside of a traditional classroom setting. Because one of those voices within me said, there's nothing else that you can do. If you want to keep teaching, you have to teach inside of a classroom. Now, what's so interesting about that is that that's what also we can refer to as a limiting belief, saying this isn't possible. We all have limiting beliefs, and we have so many that we're not even aware of most of them.
I have previously explored the concept of limiting beliefs, the stories we tell ourselves that keep us inside these boxes. And I would love to hear a little bit more about how you discovered your own limiting beliefs and how you learned to trust your inner guidance, that spiritual call, that women's intuition, whatever we call it.
In terms of discovering my own limiting beliefs or learning about them, that's a hard question to answer because I've been involved in personal growth and development work for almost 16 years now. And I know that I had learned about them at some point way back when. But as I started to go deeper into my purpose, and this is after teaching in the classroom, starting the non-9-to-5, it was my mentor who really helped me hone in on these. And I started to see, for example, as I started the non-9-to-5, a lot of limiting beliefs because I would want to go and take an action step, but then I'd tell myself, I can't do that.
Because
right.
Something.
Exactly. Yeah. I can't do that because I'll get rejected. I can't do that because people will see me as aggressive or pushy. I can't do that because I'm a loser.
I'm a loser. Oh, that kills me.
Yeah. So to stand on your own 2 feet, you need to allow yourself to follow your own inner guidance. When I say inner guidance, I'm talking about your intuition. The second part of that is to find creative ways to generate income.
All right. Well, I'm going to take this time to trust my inner guidance and create space for a quick sponsor break.
Hi, Barbie here from Moonray, husband and wife indie pop duo. If you enjoy the intro music, we invite you to listen to our debut EP, Honeymoon, streaming now on all platforms. Visit www.moonray-music.com for more.
And we're back. Jen, let's dig in a little deeper to this trusting our inner guidance. Because the word that really comes to mind, the phrase that is like branded in my psyche is women's intuition. Same thing?
I like that. Yes, it's the same thing.
All right. Tell me a little bit more about how you advocate for people to trust it. But then also, how did you learn to trust your own intuition? Answer those in whatever order you want.
For me, it's been a journey for years and years and years and years and years. As if I was 105 years old, but I'm not. That's another tough question for me to answer because there isn't like a specific answer. But over, I'd say, the past 6.5 years or so, I've become very interested and intrigued with intuition and wanting to know more and looking at what that meant for myself. So I can think back to when I was a kid, and I can think back to some kid examples of things that I did where I did not follow my intuition. And I have these pretty clear memories of them. And as I've thought about them and looked at them, what I've realized is that our intuition, women's intuition, men have intuition too, but I think women are better at it than men. Sorry, men.
I won't argue.
So with intuition, it's a small voice. It's a calm voice. It's a peaceful voice for the most part. And it's nudging you. It's guiding you. And sometimes it's guiding you to do something that most people aren't doing. And that's where it can get really hard.
I've experienced that.
Yeah.
I tend to get feelings, little lady voices telling me about people. I get like gut reactions from people. And I used to not trust that when I was younger. I used to think I was being judgmental. But through the years, I learned that my instinct, however unknown with how I perceived those unperceivable things, more often than not, I was right. And I couldn't pinpoint why. I could never pinpoint why. It's so weird.
Yeah. You have an intuitive way about you, if you will. We all have intuition. We are not taught to listen to our intuition. We are taught to make logical decisions. Now, we have to have logic because if the studio went up in flames right now, logically, we need to get out and find the safest way to do that. But what I find so interesting, and I will keep finding this interesting probably to the day that I die, is that we value logic in every single situation far more than we value our own inner guidance, which is why so many human beings will follow what everyone else is doing. And when you step out and do something different, watch out, because it feels scary. And there will be people that definitely won't support you. Your inner guidance, your intuition, your women's intuition is this beautiful, like guiding light. It's like your own inner GPS system that will support you no matter what.
I love that.
Thank you.
So how do we have our inner GPS steer us towards creative ways to generate money?
Thank you for that beautiful question. Before I answer that, I think what's important to share is that you need to be open and willing to create income in creative ways. And this goes back to limiting beliefs. I'm going to make up this example. Let's say that Sally is at a 9-to-5 job and she works at a desk all day and she sits at a computer all day. Yet Sally absolutely adores moving her body. She was put on this earth to move her body, to do yoga, to exercise. She feels calm and grounded whenever she's moving her body and dancing. And let's say that Sally starts thinking, dreaming, hoping, wishing that she could really bring movement into her life more. And let's say that Sally really starts to feel, maybe this is my purpose. Maybe this is what I'm supposed to do. Yet her ego mind will say, what are you, crazy? How are you going to make money doing that? You never will be able to do that. But if Sally is simply open to the possibility of doing that, there are many, dare I say, infinite ways Sally can generate money doing something with movement. I don't know. Maybe Sally does something part-time on the weekends. Maybe Sally does something in the evenings. And from there, because Sally is putting herself into the dance or the movement, whatever it is, she starts feeling better about herself. And if she's feeling better about herself and she feels lighter, she then can be open to other possibilities of maybe I can do this as my full-time work. And, I think back to December of 2010, where I had said to myself, there's got to be a way. There's got to be a way where I can continue teaching outside of this classroom setting. I'm depressed. I'm anxiety-ridden. I do love my students because I loved my students, but I was miserable. And I was trying to think of a way to generate an income continuing to teach. And I was just open to it. I was just open, even though my mind was saying, no, you can't do that. There's not going to be anything. And I was just open to creative ways to generate money. And that led me to the independent contracting work. The independent contracting work led me to starting my first business. I never knew that would have happened. My first business, Teacher on the Go, led me to creating and being the founder of the non-9-to-5.
How can women right now start to trust that inner guidance that says we can make money in a different way that isn't the standard, that's not the norm? I don't have to have that corporate job. I don't have to do the 8-hour day, 5 days a week thing. I can do something of my own. I can do an Etsy side business. I can start a dance studio. I can go into business with Sally and be a yoga instructor. All the things, right? All these amazing possibilities. How do we lean in to those opportunities?
So the first thing is, I'll go with the inner energetic piece. So when I say inner energetic, I'm talking about how you feel. So if someone's listening to this right now and they're saying, I feel like I could never do this. The real honest truth is that if you really feel you could never do this and you're not willing to do anything, that's what you'll get. However, if you're just willing to be open, and you can sit here and be listening to this podcast going, I'm willing. Okay, I'm willing to be open. I don't know what that looks like. It feels totally impossible, but I'm willing. That's your first step, being willing. The second step is, and it sounds kind of funny, is taking baby steps. So write down on a piece of paper things that you love, things that you're passionate about, and ask yourself, how could I maybe, just maybe, find a way to do this thing and generate money by doing it? I don't know how. And maybe all of a sudden you start thinking about, I'm going back to my old school ways because I was on Craigslist when I found that.
Oh.
I don't know if anyone really uses it anymore.
No judgment, Craigslist.
Yeah, I love Craigslist. I found a lot of things there, including furniture and roommates.
There you go.
Yeah. Maybe you hop on the internet. Maybe you post on Facebook. Maybe you talk to a friend. You have to speak it out loud. That's another thing too. If you keep a thought inside of your mind, if you keep an idea, a dream, a desire inside of yourself, it literally can't go anywhere. You have to start saying it out loud. And I know how hard it can feel to say things out loud because that means we got to be vulnerable. And that means there's the possibility of being rejected.
Oh, yeah. So by putting it out in the world, we have the opportunity to Have accountability partners, whether they're with one person, with Facebook, with our LinkedIn profile, with our journal, whatever. We get an opportunity to put it out there and have other people say, hey, there's something about that.
Yeah, and that's a really great way to put it. I've actually never thought of it that way, but it's super smart to think of it as you have these sort of accountability partners. You know, if you've said it, someone heard it. If someone heard it, they can be like, hey, how's that thing going? And that's a little bit of accountability right there. It's like the baby step of accountability.
I love these steps you're giving us on leaning into creative ways to generate money, but I am so drawn to the intuition question, and I want to take us back there for just 1 second. What happens when we don't trust our intuition? Maybe not just the one time, but consistently.
That's such a great question. Well, one thing is if we're not following our intuition consistently, we are following our ego mind consistently. And we're going to receive things that we don't really want. We're going to find ourselves in situations that feel misaligned. We're going to get more of the same. So if we go back to the example of Sally sitting at her desk, typing away at her computer, getting these hunches, these intuitive nudges, the women's intuition, inner guidance of movement, dance, yoga, whatever it is for her. Imagine Sally 2 years from now had never listened to that. My thought is that Sally's going to be a pretty unhappy person. And perhaps because Sally is an unhappy person, she's doing things in her life that are really misaligned. Maybe Sally is having romantic relationships that are completely misaligned. Maybe Sally is self-medicating with alcohol. Maybe Sally is overeating. Maybe Sally is over shopping, over social media-ing. And it might not seem like those things are connected, but if we're not connected to our purpose, to who we're really meant to be, to the work we're really meant to do in the world, we're not going to get, I don't even know how to put it. Like there's probably a great word. I feel like you would have a great word for that.
I can see all the pieces coming together when you were describing that because everything is connected.
Yes.
It's all connected. And if we're not driven by our purpose and we're just driving the car on autopilot, like following the preconceived notions of how we're supposed to be and the life we're supposed to live and the job we're supposed to have, we never get to lean into those opportunities or those potential joys that could come from creating something all our own or leaning into our unique talents.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And every human being on the planet has unique talents, unique strengths, unique skills, unique gifts.
Yes, say it.
I'm preaching, sister.
I love it.
And it's really up to us to grab the reins of those unique abilities that we have. But I'm telling you that it will be so hard to do that if you're not in tune to your intuition, if you are not following your inner guidance.
Jen, if you were to share one action our listeners could take right now to start standing on our own 2 feet in the way that you describe, what would it be?
Okay, you ready for this one?
I'm ready.
Here's what I want you to do. I want you to find a space, perhaps in your home or outside, where you can take 5 minutes to get quiet. Sit in any comfortable position that's comfortable for you. Don't close your eyes yet. Just look around, get acquainted to your space, even if it's been a space that you've been in a trillion times. Close your eyes, take about 3 deep breaths, and then ask your inner guidance by asking in your mind, what is the next best step for me? Now, if that question feels too big, because that can be a pretty big question, or feels too general, it could also be, now for someone who's in a full-time job, am I meant to be at this job? Whatever shows itself immediately, automatically, whatever feeling you get, that's your intuition. Now, you can do this with any burning question you have, with any area that you feel is tricky or you feel stuck in. So if you're saying to yourself, I want to find another way, a creative way to generate income, you can sit and ask, what is one way I could generate income in a creative way. Whatever shows itself immediately. And it's okay if it doesn't come right away, but the first thing, you might see a picture in your mind. You might get a feeling. A person's name might pop in. A location might appear in your mind. Write that down. Sit with that. And then that's going to show you what that next step is.
Nice. Thank you for that, Jen. I hope you all able to take that quick little meditation and put it into practice. So for the last step of our show, we're going to do our Femme Fact, where we share a lesson from history on women's general badassery. So, Jen, have you tuned into one of the White House press briefings lately?
No.
No? Avoid those intentionally?
Yes.
Okay. Well, don't worry. We're not going to talk about current presidential press briefings, but rather the origins of press briefings, specifically as they relate to females in journalism. Now, y'all probably don't consider a world where female journalists aren't allowed inside the press room, but that world existed not too long ago, unfortunately. And in fact, women only started attending White House press conferences in 1933. And that is in thanks to Anna Eleanor Roosevelt, our fellow activist, diplomat, and the longest-serving First Lady in U.S. history, paved the way for female journalists during her time in the White House. Eleanor involved herself in women's advocacy from the very beginning of her tenure as First Lady, despite being weary of women's suffrage initially. She held leadership roles in the League of Women Voters, the Women's Trade Union League, and she headed the women's division of the DNC. She also surrounded herself with women's rights trailblazers such as Molly Dewson and Rose Schneiderman. Eleanor's involvement with women's rights was covered so extensively by the media that she became even more recognizable than her political husband, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. As a testament to her dedication to women's rights and representation in the newsroom, Eleanor held the very first all-women and only women White House press conference in history. And get this, she did it a mere 2 days after FDR's inauguration to the presidency. 2 days, lady. She wasn't sitting on her laurels. Eleanor decided to make her White House conferences a weekly ritual to save the jobs of female journalists and to ensure their access to news during a time when their careers were hanging on a thread due to limited access and economic challenges. Her first news conference had a turnout of 35 reporters, which doesn't sound too huge these days, but at the time, it was so big that journalists had to sit on the floor to fit in the room that it was held in. Over her 12-year run as First Lady, Eleanor held a total of 348 all-women's White House press conferences, becoming a widely admired political figure amongst reporters. So if you ever tune into one of the White House press briefings, take note of our fellow boss ladies asking the questions and pressing for the facts that keep us informed and empowered, just as Eleanor Roosevelt envisioned. So the moral of the story is to go out there and keep pushing the boundaries of what is allowed or expected of you and what is allowed or expected of women. Be the loudest voice in that room. Be the loudest voice in that press conference. Be the loudest voice in your office meeting or your job or your entrepreneurial journey. Live the legacy that Eleanor left for us. You deserve to be heard. Now, Jen, I want you to have the last word today because I know you have a special gift for our listeners.
Yeah, so I'm really excited to share this special gift with everyone that's listening. I have written a mini PDF ebook. It's entitled The Number One Step to Staying with Your Business Mission. The way to receive that gift is you will go to my website. It's www.thenon9to5.com.
Which we will link in the show notes.
Thank you. And you'll just put your first name and your email address, and I will send that right off to you.
Huzzah! Thank you, Jen, and thank you for joining us today. It has been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been wonderful.
And it's been wonderful to have all your ears listen to this show. If you liked it, please subscribe and check out our next episode. And share with a friend. Your recommendations give us joy. Until next time, I'm Lorelei. This is HERdacious, and that was Jen.
That's me.
Y'all have a good time and get out there and live the dream. You got this.
Wear your mask.
And that too.